Hi there, Charlie here. I've got another Bronica video for you. This one we're going to talk about some accessories for the camera, including the speed grip, which is a manual winder, and also a metered viewfinder prism as well, which I've mentioned in some of the earlier videos, but I didn't actually have one to show you at the time. I now do have one, so we'll just have a little look at some of the operations of that. I've managed to borrow a camcorder to make this new video, so hopefully the sound and quality will be a little bit better than previous. And also, as ever, if you have any questions or feedback, please feel free to leave them in the comment section, and I'll do my best to come back to you when I have a free moment. Thanks very much and enjoy the video. Okay, so let's get straight into the tutorial. Here we've got our Bronica SQ AI, which you'll remember from the previous videos, and the only difference from before is it's now got this rather fetching red Pentax strap on it, because I've been toting the camera out and about with me and getting some use out of it, which is good. And the first thing that we're going to add to the camera is the speed grip itself that I was talking about. Just going to push this out of the way so we can have a quick look. This is, if you see these on eBay or for second-hand sale anywhere, it's referred to as the Speed Grip S, and basically it is a manually operated winder grip for the camera. So you can see on the top here we've got a thumb crank which lets us wind on the film and cock the mirror, and that thumb crank is basically connected to a linkage here on the side. So when we do that, you can see that linkage turning. Okay. I'm going to apologise right now because there's a screw missing from this. I hadn't realised it's been sat in the drawer for a while, so this is a little bit loose. In reality, this would be a lot more steady, as it were, and it's going to make it a little bit fiddly for us attaching the grip later on. So you'll probably have to bear with me while I do that. Other things on the grip then, if we look on the front of the grip here, you can see that there is a shutter release button. So when we're holding this in our hand, we can release the shutter on the camera with our index finger, and you can see when I press that down there's just a linkage here at the front, and all that does is just presses on the shutter release on the front of the camera. This little silver switch down here you see with the red dot is basically a kind of safety catch, as it were, for the shutter release. So right now I can release it. If I slide that switch backwards, it basically physically locks the switch out and stops me from accidentally releasing the shutter, perhaps if I've got the camera in a bag or something. The other thing on the top here, which you've probably noticed, is that there is a hot shoe, and this is a proper hot shoe, so it's not just what we would call a cold shoe, which is just for holding the flash. It is actually a hot shoe, which means it will trigger the flash when you fire the shutter release, because there's wiring that goes to the camera. You don't obviously get any TTL through the lens flash metering like you do with more modern cameras, but it is a way of attaching a flash gun to the camera and operating it in a way other than using the PC port on the front of the camera. The only other things then on the grip itself really are on the bottom, which is this silver thumb screw here, which is what we use to attach the grip to the camera using the tripod socket. And obviously, because we're using the tripod socket on the camera, there's another tripod socket here provided for us if we want to put our quick release plates on or attach the camera to a tripod while the grip is on it. Okay, so without further ado then, we're going to attach the speed grip to the camera, and I'll warn you right now, this is a little bit fiddly, so you might have to bear with me while I fiddle around. The first thing we need to do then before we attach the grip is we need to take off the winding crank from the camera itself. Essentially the grip is going to be replacing this little winding crank handle. It's very easy to do, and all we basically do is, if we turn this around, I think the best way you can see this, on the side where the hinge is, so if we lift up the actual crank itself, the side where the hinge is, on the front edge of the winding crank itself there is just a little switch, and all we need to do is just lift that switch up and at the same time just slide the crank back and lift it off, and you can see it just it unclips from the side of the camera, and that leaves us with these two little metal pegs that you can see sticking up, which will basically allow us to link it to the winder grip. Once we've done that then, and it's easiest to put the camera on its back while we do this, you basically want to make sure that you've got the actual linkage here lined up as best you can with the little metal pegs, and then also the tripod mounting on the front here, and as I said, this can be a little bit fiddly, so if you bear with me. You can see that's dropped into place there, and then all we do is we just do this up, thumb tight, and once you've got it screwed on, you just fold the catch down, and that means it's nice and flush, and that's the grip attached to the camera, as you can see. Okay, if I just quickly take the film back off the back and then put it back on again, so that the gears are no longer meshed, you'll see that when I push this thumb crank over, you can see the winding linkage there turning around in between the two, and it takes two cranks, full cranks of the thumb crank to wind the camera on and cock the shutter. Okay, so that's the speed grip attached. I'm just going to set the camera down out of the way over here and talk to you briefly a little bit about the auto exposure prism before we attach this to the camera. It's a bit easier to do before I attach it to the camera, it's a bit lighter to hold. Okay, so this is the auto exposure metering prism Mark III or AE3 prism. It's also, you'll see it advertised as an SQI metering prism as well. I believe the terminology that was used to name it differs from sort of market to market, so US ones you might find branded slightly different to ones that are bought in Europe, but it's the only prism that looks like this. The older ones are slightly more curvaceous. This is a little bit more kind of blocky, I would say. Prism itself, again, is fairly simple. I mean, it's reasonably heavy. I think it adds probably not as much as a kilo. I can't remember the exact weight, but it does add a little bit. You know, there's quite a bit of glass inside here with the prism, so it does add a bit of weight to the camera body when you put it on. But the controls itself are quite simple. Looking on this side here, we basically have an on-off and mode switch. So I don't know if you can see that on there. Right now it's at off. There's an M mode, which is for manual, and then there is actually an auto exposure mode. The paint has flaked off on my one. It would say A on there, on one where the paint had not been damaged. So that allows us to select the actual exposure mode that we're going to be using. So manual, pretty simple, as it says, is manual. What we'll do is when you look through the prism, the meter inside will tell you what the correct shutter speed to set is, but you have to set that manually on the side of the body. So essentially you can override that manually if you want to. When you put it to the A mode, what happens is you set an aperture that you want to shoot at on the camera, and then the prism will automatically adjust the shutter speed in the camera to match that, and you don't have to turn the dial. It actually overrides the dial on the side when it's in aperture priority mode. So no matter what you set that dial to on the side, the prism will alter the shutter speed to give you the correct exposure on the camera. Okay. Then on the side here we've got an M and a C button. The M button is basically a memory button which allows you to store a metering. So say you have like a backlit subject or something, you can close in, you can take a meter reading on the subject, you can press the memory button and that will store it. I think it's for about 3 minutes it stores it in memory, and it will hold that. So even if you move back and then the exposure changes, it won't fool the meter into changing the exposure. And the C button just clears the exposure memory as well. Okay, so if you've done it and you think it's the wrong exposure and you want to clear it and start again, you just press clear and then you can start again. On the top we have an exposure compensation dial which goes plus and minus 2 stops, and it has a little button in the middle which we have to press down before we can move it out of the neutral position, and that allows us to add some exposure compensation when we're using the automatic mode. And that is in addition to the exposure compensation dial which is on the back of the film backs themselves. So with this, your 2 stops on here and your 2 stops on the back of the camera, you can actually add up to a maximum of 4 stops exposure compensation in either direction as required, plus or minus. Then this little slider switch here has 2 positions, which is AV and SP. That's average or spot, and that's the 2 different metering modes. In average, the meter will look at the entire frame and meter by averaging out essentially the tones within the entire frame with a little bit of weighting towards the center of the frame. push it up into spot mode, and it will use just the very center of the finder, usually about the area where the little split prism is on the focusing screen. So it's a much more constricted metering that you're getting, which is good if you want to, again, with something like a backlit subject, you want to make sure that you're metering off of your subject's face perhaps, and you don't want the bright backlight to fool the meter. You can put it into spot mode. Or if you want to look around a scene and work out the sort of range of tones that are in there, then the spot mode will let you do that. Most of the time, average does a pretty good job. On the back then, we've got this little dial here. That's just a diopter adjustment dial, which allows you to adjust the eyepiece to compensate for your eyes. So if you're a glasses wearer, you can take your glasses off and adjust this. I think it's got about a 2 diopter range in each direction. And then this little switch here is basically, you can probably just see inside, there's a little shutter which we can close down, which basically stops any stray light. If we're using the camera on a tripod, we don't have our eye up against this and we're using the auto exposure, it stops any stray light from getting into the back of the metering prism and perhaps affecting the metered value that you're getting. Don't use it very often, but you'll find quite a lot of high-end cameras from Nikon and Canon also have this. Really, that's the only controls on the meter itself. On the front here, this white patch here is just a little window that lets light in so that you can read the LCD display that's inside there. And then if we turn it over, we've got a couple of contacts here which connect up with the contacts on top of the film magazine to transmit the film speed. And then this bit here is actually just a plastic cover, and you can see inside the prism there. So there's a piece of glass over there to stop any sort of dust and that from getting inside. And it comes with this little dust cover, so obviously when you not have the prism on the camera, it's a good idea to keep that on there to stop any dust from getting in, or to stop the glass front cover from getting scratched as well. Okay, so fitting the prism to the camera, it's dead simple. We covered removing how to remove the finders in an earlier movie, but I'll just again very quickly show you how to do that. On the front right hand side of the camera, we have this little switch here which we can pull down. All we do is we just pull this down and we slide the finder back and lift it off, and you can see the focusing screen underneath there. And then all we do is we just take the dust cover off of the prism finder, put it on top, and then just slide it forward until it clicks into place, and that's the prism fitted. So you can see it makes the camera, quite a bit bigger, and also quite a bit heavier. But the point that I was making about the speed grip improving the ergonomics of the camera is, once you have this, if you've got the waist level finder and you're looking down into the camera, you tend to sort of hold the camera underneath and look down into it, and it's quite a comfortable position to shoot with. Once you get the prism finder on this, obviously you have to lift it up to your eye, and without this speed grip on there, it becomes a slightly less comfortable way of shooting. With this, you can hold it a bit more like a sort of 35mm SLR, and bring it up to your eye and fire away and just wind it on. So a definite sort of change now in the camera. It's become much larger, but I would say a bit more flexible. You've now got a meter built in there, so you can work a bit quicker with this. And also, with the prism on there, the image that you're looking at is the right way around, so it's not reversed from left to right the way that it was with the waist level finder. So you find that you're able to track things a lot more easily with the prism finder on. And the final accessory that I've got kicking about down here, which I didn't mention in the earlier videos, is a lens hood, which just goes onto the front here and just bayonets on and just stops any stray light from hitting the front element of the lens there and giving you flare. So there we go, going from a fairly small camera up to a pretty big chunky camera. Hope that's useful, and as I said, if you've got any questions, stick them in the comments and I will do my best to answer them. Thanks guys, bye.